Chapter 2361. Chen Zhao immediately changed his direction and attacked the woman who had used plant magic. The woman also yelled, "I'm a spy from the Druid Church. I don't know you." Whether or not Zhang Tianyi and 23rd generation Blood Mary's subordinates were real, Chen Zhao couldn't attack them before figuring out their identities. But he didn't know anyone from the Druid Church. Kill a stranger. So Chen Zhao didn't stop because of the woman's yell. The black blade formed from the dark magma was already very close. The woman didn't understand why the boar head and the spear-wielding woman could live as spies. Her identity as a spy didn't work at all. Thankfully, the spear-wielding woman swung her spear again, shattering the tide-like black blade. "What are you doing? Don't think you can interfere with my actions just because you're old Zhang's disciple. Plus, your identity isn't confirmed yet." Chen Zhao looked at the spear-wielding woman unkindly. He wondered if he should kill the woman as well. But if he killed her, then he might have to kill the Scarlet Church's spies as well in order to silence them. Thinking of this, Chen Zhao looked at the boar head. The boar head panicked. He could feel the murderous intent in Chen Zhao's eyes when he looked at him and the spear-wielding woman again. Chen Zhao had been able to be a spy and stay by Avit Kongson's side for many years. Moreover, in order to not arouse his suspicions, other than being cautious, he also had a meticulous mind and high IQ. He probably felt that the spear-wielding woman's obstruction made Chen Zhao want to kill. And if he really killed the spear-wielding woman, he had to die too in order to silence her. The boar head broke out in a cold sweat. The devil before him wasn't a kind person. Only Avit Kongson wanted to vomit blood. He'd thought that his subordinates were all loyal. But when he turned around, he realized that there were 3 spies among them. And they belonged to different sections. In the past, I didn't know her identity, but now that I know, I can't kill her. The Druid Church and my Dragon Tiger Mountain Celestial Master Sect have sworn an oath of alliance. So in terms of relationship, she and I are fellow disciples. I can't watch my fellow disciple die in front of me and do nothing. Whether her identity is real or fake, Chen Zhao said coldly. I don't even know who you are. At this moment, the man who had been standing behind Avit Kong with flames burning in his hands suddenly extinguished the flames in his hands. Avit Kong's son turned his head to look behind him and saw his adopted son looking at him with a complicated expression. He couldn't help but be shocked. Robert, I raised you myself. Chen Zhao also looked at the man called Robert. His spell looked like a fire spell, but Chen Zhao felt like he had seen it before. Now that he saw Robert extinguish the flames in his hands, he was even more certain. His magic was very similar to Bifla's holy fire magic. Lord President, I'm sorry. I'm a spy from the fire worship sect. Avit Kong felt the world spin. At that moment, he felt that everyone was betraying him. Everyone present was his trusted aide, and he had never hidden any of his plans from them. Only now did he realize that half of his trusted aides were spies. This meant that his every move was actually under the control of the sections. He was actually naive enough to think that all of his actions were secretive, and he thought that he was hidden. Looks like I don't have to keep hiding anymore. At this moment, the last spy also surfaced. Chen Zhao looked at the man who'd spoken last. He hadn't done anything yet. He'd been watching from the back with his arms crossed. Chen Zhao had noticed him before. He had a strong aura of dark magic on him. But now, the dark aura on him gradually retracted. It was replaced by thick and extremely pure holy light magic. Let me guess. You're from the church? Chen Zhao asked the man. Chen Zhao had seen many spiritualists who could use dual magic. However, it was Chen Zhao's first time seeing a spiritualist who could use both holy light and dark magic, which countered each other. Chen Zhao had heard that both were very difficult to cultivate. One had to have the corresponding magic element and extremely high talent. Moreover, holy light and dark magic conflicted with each other. Of course, this also proved the man's talent and ability. Avit's body trembled. You all deserve to die, all of you deserve to die. Chen Zhao actually understood how Avit felt right now. Of course, Chen Zhao's feelings were complicated too. At first, he'd only planned to kill one person. It wasn't that he couldn't get over it. In fact, he'd long since gotten over it. He was just unhappy about being ordered around by Zhang Tianyi. That was why he'd come with a mask. He only wanted to kill Avit, the main culprit. As for the others, he'd let Zhang Tianyi take care of them. But because his mask had been picked, he felt the urge to kill again. He'd had the urge to kill again. In the end, he'd only killed one, and they all jumped out on their own. Chen Zhao hadn't changed his original intention of calling himself a spy, but there was more sympathy in his eyes when he looked at Avit Kongsen. He was too pitiful. He only had 7 subordinates, but 5 of them were spies. Chen Zhao had to admit that this guy had bad taste in picking people. Come, I'll free you. If you die, you won't have so many troubles. Chen Zhao didn't want to kill him now. They were all very complicated. If any information was exposed, a large sect would be in trouble. Plus, Zhang Tianyi knew that he'd come here. Would he be able to silence Zhang Tianyi? It would be easier to kill Avit Kong. Senator Avit's bitter smile suddenly turned into a sinister one. Do you really think you can kill me? All of you will die, all of you. Just then, arms suddenly grew out of Avit Kongsen's body. Hundreds of arms grew out, making him look like a caterpillar. This spell. Chen Zhao narrowed his eyes and looked at Avit. Why was it so similar to Lilith's? Just then, every arm on Avit Kongsen's body began to cast magic. The spells cast by each arm were also different. Chen Zhao was even more surprised. This guy's spell was like a weaker version of Lilith's. However, Avit's form still scared the others. After all, releasing hundreds of different spells at the same time was still very shocking. Chapter 2362. Even Lilith's strengthened version couldn't do anything to Chen Zhao, not to mention the simplified version. But there were some differences between the two. As for what was different, Chen Zhao couldn't tell. Anyway, he just felt that they were different. In Chen Zhao's eyes, it was a weakened version. But to others, it was boundlessly terrifying. What did it mean to release hundreds of spells at the same time? It was like hundreds of spiritualists attacking at the same time. No matter how confident they were, they didn't think that they could fight against hundreds of spiritualists. Even the lowest level spiritualists. Looking at the innumerable spells that were shining with colorful brilliance, Lin Li was stunned. They were like the most dazzling fireworks in the world. Everyone felt an indescribable pressure. They had been with Avit Kong's son for so long. Even the shortest time was at least 5 years. Robert and Avit Kong's son were like father and son. They didn't know that Avit Kong's son had such power. Or rather, he had such unimaginable spells. Chen Zhao lifted his right arm. The mouth of gluttony. Just then, the mouth of gluttony fell off Chen Zhao's arm again, and turned into the glutton beast. But this time it wasn't as big as last time. Last time, the glutton beast that Chen Zhao's right arm had turned into was almost the same size as Beelzebub Sophie. Now, Chen Zhao's glutton beast was about the size of a small house. Of course, this was also because he had faced Lilith last time. At that time, Chen Zhao had gone all out. He'd used all his enhancements. This time, he was facing Avit Kong. Senator. The difference in power between the two was more than 1,000 times. Chen Zhao didn't use any enhancements. The glutton behemoth opened its mouth and sucked all the magic into its mouth. The boar head's expression changed slightly. Of course, he could feel that the glutton beast had the same bloodline as him. However, the glutton beast had a pure glutton bloodline. The boar head's bloodline had been diluted countless times. It wasn't just the difference in bloodline. In terms of strength, it was unknown how many times weaker they were. Now he finally understood why Chen Zhao wasn't afraid of his special ability. Because they were the same kind. Plus, Chen Zhao surpassed him in all aspects. He was actually naive enough to use a low-level bloodline to try and defeat a higher-level bloodline. It could be said that if he wasn't a spy, he would definitely be devoured by Chen Zhao in the same way. Not only was the wild boar head shocked, but the others were also in disbelief. They didn't have the bloodline of a wild boar, so they didn't know what this magic-devouring behemoth was. However, it was definitely not an ordinary magical creature. Even dragons could not devour magic. However, this gigantic beast could devour magic endlessly. That was terrifying. Of course, Avit Kong's son would not give up without a fight. He frantically unleashed his magic. The gluttony behemoth, on the other hand, was endlessly devouring. It would devour as much as Avit Kong's son released. However, the longer the stalemate, the more terrified Avit Kong became. His magic power was limited. However, this beast was like an endless abyss. He released thousands of spells, but they were not enough to fill the abyss. Actually, Avit Kong didn't know that the glutton behemoth had a limit. However, his strength was not enough to probe the glutton behemoth's limits. Moreover, the glutton behemoth's magic devouring was different from the boarhead's. So much magic energy was brewing in the glutton behemoth's mouth, but it was not being absorbed. The energy became larger and larger. When Avit Kong's son could no longer continue, he stopped releasing magic. The glutton behemoth opened its bloody mouth again. A colorful energy ball appeared in its mouth. When Avit Kong saw the energy ball in the glutton behemoth's mouth, he immediately realized that something was wrong. He turned around and ran. His way of running was also very special. All his arms wriggled on the ground, like a caterpillar. Disgusting. Boom! The energy ball accurately hit Avit Kong's senator. The energy ball expanded instantly, but it wasn't too exaggerated. It only maintained a diameter of a few meters. This was the maintenance of high-energy energy. To use a common analogy, it was as stable as the sun. Of course, the energy level of the energy ball couldn't compare to the sun. This constant balance only lasted for less than 10 seconds. When everyone saw that Avit Kong's son had nothing left, they couldn't help but sigh. They knew Avit Kong's son's strength, both before and after he changed his body. But now, he didn't even have a corpse left. The remaining people, including the crippled bot, all stared at Chen Zhao in silence. Finally, the boarhead could not help but say, "Sir, then we..." "You what? You want to leave?" Chen Zhao narrowed his eyes and looked at them. "Before I know who you are, don't even think about leaving." Everyone was secretly annoyed, but they did not dare to retort. The dark magma had already surrounded them, and the glutton behemoth was facing them. If anyone dared to do anything, they wouldn't end up much better than Avit Kong's senator. Moreover, Chen Zhao had already shown his strength to suppress everyone. It wasn't just defeat. It was complete suppression. If they had any chance of winning, they would not accept Chen Zhao's humiliating treatment. "Let's start with you." Chen Zhao looked at Bot. "You're not someone's spy. You should have no objections if I kill you, right?" "Of course, who wouldn't have objections?" Bot propped himself up with one hand with difficulty and said unhurriedly. "After Huluz was captured by the Celestial Master, the Celestial Master contacted me through Huluz. I'm also a spy of Dragon Tiger Mountain's Celestial Master sect, but only the Celestial Master knows about this. If you want to confirm this, you can only ask the Celestial Master." Bot felt that no matter how strong Chen Zhao was, he would not dare to question Zhang Tianyi. Of course, even if he really did question Zhang Tianyi, he would not be afraid. He was still discussing with Zhang Tianyi, but he had not completely agreed to Zhang Tianyi's request. In order to save his life, going with the flow wasn't something unacceptable. Chen Zhao took out his phone. Everyone saw the number of an old bastard appear on the screen. "Hey old Zhang, it's me. I just killed the president of the Hermit Order. These two said that they were spies sent by you. Tell me if that's true. If they're not, I'll kill these two liars while I'm at it." "Chen Zhao, one of them is my daughter. Don't do anything stupid," Zhang Tianyi exclaimed. "Daughter? Which one?" Chen Zhao pretended to be confused. "I saw a furry one. Are you talking about him? Nine Heavens Divine Emperor." Chapter 2363. Although Chen Zhao was purposely making things difficult for Zhang Tianyi, he had been joking with Zhang Tianyi the whole time. Moreover, he often made fun of his daughter. However, when he remembered that his daughter was still in his hands, he let his daughter go in the end. As for Bot, Zhang Tianyi also gave a positive reply. However, Chen Zhao noticed Bolt's nervous expression before Zhang Tianyi confirmed it. After all, he was a rootless duckweed. No, it should be the meat on the chopping board. On the other hand, Chen Zhao could raise his butcher's knife at any time. This guy killed without batting an eye. Moreover, he and Zhang Tianyi had not come to an agreement before. The main thing was that he wasn't very satisfied with the conditions. If Zhang Tianyi denied it at this time, he would be finished. Fortunately, he still had value. Only then did Zhang Tianyi step forward to protect him. However, in this way, it would be extremely difficult to escape from Zhang Tianyi's hands in the future. Before hanging up the phone, Zhang Tianyi proved it to the druid girl. Although Zhang Tianyi wasn't there, he was able to make a judgment based on Chen Zhao's description. This druid chick was indeed a spy planted by the druid sect around Avit Khan Senator. Then there was Bifla, the 23rd Blood Mary, and Pope John the Elder. They also proved the identities of these spies. Chen Zhao couldn't help but sigh. This Avit Khan was such a failure. Everyone had betrayed him, except for the woman who had her head smashed by Chen Zhao and used lightning. It seemed that all of his trusted aides were spies. This was simply too tragic. Of course, Chen Zhao wasn't sympathizing with Avit Khan. He was gloating. Dad. Zhang Nan looked at her father. Zhang Tianyi closed the Taoist scripture and gently placed it on the tea table beside him. Sit, Zhang Tianyi said lightly. Zhang Nan sat down obediently on the cattail hassock with his back straight. This was a habit that she had developed since she was young, even though she was using a red tasseled spear. In fact, she was a Taoist nun through and through. He had joined the church when he was 8 years old. She would only call Zhang Tianyi dad when she was alone with him. If they were in the sect, she would also have to call Zhang Tianyi headmaster. Moreover, she did not receive any special care from Zhang Tianyi during her cultivation. His dermic powers were not much higher than his peers. Of course, in her eyes, she was referring to the generation of Zhang Tianyi's disciples. In terms of seniority, those of her generation were all over 80 years old. There were also 1 or 2 eldest senior brothers and eldest senior sisters who were over 100 years old. What did you gain from your training outside the mountain? Zhang Tianyi asked. After hiding in the hermit cultivators for so many years, my Tao heart couldn't calm down, Zhang Nan said. I've seen so many evil deeds, but being in the wolf's den, my will is willing but my strength is insufficient. Before you left the mountain, your father had made it clear. Zhang Tianyi replied. Joining the Hermit Cultivators Association doesn't depend on how dangerous that place is, but on the tempering of your heart. Zhang Tianyi's words weren't fake either. If he wasn't completely confident, he wouldn't have sent his own daughter to the Hermit Order as a spy, even if she accidentally exposed her identity. Even if Zhang Tianyi was thousands of miles away, he was confident that he could protect his daughter. The Taoists were particular about doing things without doing anything, and the Tao was natural. Therefore, cultivation was more about cultivating the mind. As long as one's temperament was strong enough and tenacious enough, one's cultivation would be unimpeded. Therefore, the Taoists were more focused on the inner realm than the outer realm. They weren't like Chen Zhao, who increased his cultivation explosively and didn't cultivate his mind at all. Of course, everyone had their own fate. Zhang Nan had been in the sect for close to 20 years, but her innate talent was higher than her comprehension. As Zhang Tianyi's daughter, she couldn't say that she surpassed her father, but her innate talent was definitely not bad. However, due to the limitations of Longhu Mountain's Taoist sect, Zhang Nan had to have a strong state of mind in order for her cultivation to keep up. If her state of mind wasn't there, then no matter how talented she was, she wouldn't be able to improve. In theory, the state of mind was not limited and could be improved infinitely. It could even reach an unimaginable level. However, cultivation was limited by the state of mind. Because of this, Zhang Nan needed to leave the mountain to train. However, there were many things to pay attention to when leaving the mountain. If it was just walking around in the pugilistic world, it wasn't challenging at all for Zhang Nan. Not to mention cultivating her mind. With Zhang Tianyi's name, which pugilistic world would dare to make things difficult for Zhang Nan? Even the most ferocious scoundrel would avoid Zhang Nan if they saw her. Because of this, Zhang Nan was able to sneak into the hidden cultivator sect under Zhang Tianyi's arrangements. Even Zhang Nan becoming Avit Kongsen's trusted aide was arranged by Zhang Tianyi. Avit Kong's son thought that he was in control of the hidden cultivator sect, but he didn't know that the hidden cultivator sect had long been corrupted by various forces. And now, Avit Kong's son had died a horrible death. However, the hidden cultivator sect would still exist, and it would still be under the control of various forces. After a series of internal strife, a new and powerful guild master would appear. This was also the reason why Zhang Tianyi dared to arrange for Zhang Nan to infiltrate the hidden cultivator sect. The so-called guild master of the hidden cultivators sect believed that he had obtained his position through his own strength and intelligence. However, he didn't know that these guild masters were merely pawns to be controlled, or even toys. Zhang Nan's experience as a spy in the hidden cultivators sect wasn't much, but it wasn't little either. If it wasn't for Avik Kong Sen's own death wish, he might have been able to live on for a few more years. However, he actually reached out to those talented children, or spiritual children. This was a taboo. What a joke! What did the spiritual world rely on to prosper? It didn't rely on old guys like them, who were about to be abandoned by the times. It relied on the new generation, and the talented children. But Avik Kongsen had locked his target on the children. Everyone couldn't stand it anymore. That was why he had to die. No one could tolerate this. As the person involved, Chen Zhao couldn't tolerate it, but so could Zhang Tianyi. Even the spies like Zhang Nan couldn't tolerate it. Therefore, every spy basically passed information to the organization they were in. Therefore, even if Avik Kong's son didn't die, he wouldn't live for more than 3 to 5 days. If attacking ordinary people was the bottom line, then attacking children was a taboo. The bottom line was something that could be constantly tested or crossed by others. However, touching something taboo would result in death. Dad, who's that guy? Did you send him? He's also from Dragon Tiger Mountain? Send him? If he hears this, he might not rest until I, your father, am dead. This guy's too murderous. He's even more murderous than Avik Kong Sr. Don't be fooled by his ruthlessness, but he knows life better than anyone else. He also knows his Tao better than anyone else. Otherwise, how do you think you kids could survive from his hands? It's not like we don't have the power to fight back. If we're forced into a corner, we might be able to fight back. My dear daughter, if he wants to kill you, you won't even have the chance to tell him who you are, let alone fight back. Chapter 2364. Where did that person come from? Zhang Nan asked. How come I've never heard of him? Which sect is he from? Zhang Nan asked. He's overseas, Zhang Tianyi said. But it's sad that you guys were born in the same era as him. Zhang Tianyi sighed. Unless his daughter could reach the Shangqing state, she would barely have some achievements in Chen Zhao's eyes. This was a very real problem. He hadn't reached the end of his lifespan yet. The 23rd Blood Mary had received the primordial stone from Chen Zhao and forcefully extended her life. But no matter how much they extended their lives, they definitely wouldn't be able to outlive Chen Zhao. In the future, there would be almost no one who could compete with Chen Zhao in the spiritual world. Bifla had some hope. If he successfully transferred his body next time, his cultivation would improve, and he would be able to keep up with Chen Zhao's. As for the others, they were too far behind. John Sr. wasn't weak, but he relied on external forces. If his church's divine artifacts were taken away, John Sr. would at most be half a step into the Shangqing state. Moreover, John Sr. was old too. He probably wouldn't be able to outlive the 23rd Blood Mary. As for the younger generation, Zhang Tianyi didn't think highly of them, unless 10 or more Shangqing state experts appeared in the future. Otherwise, Chen Zhao would be the only one. Of course, from the current situation, the next 100 years would be a situation where there were many experts. Chen Zhao is that super expert. After him, there would be a few Shangqing state experts. This was the most optimistic estimate. Moreover, as the spiritual qi tide approached, it hadn't completely recovered yet, but the spiritual qi was starting to return. In the next 100 years, it would probably reach its peak. In the era of spiritual qi recovery, the spiritual world would also develop to its limit. There would definitely be more experts then in this era. Of course, the principle of the strong getting stronger also applied in the spiritual world. But there was another possibility. Chen Zhao's cultivation had already reached its limit. Zhang Nan didn't know Chen Zhao. It was her first time seeing him, so she didn't have a deeper impression of him other than his strength. Of course, she didn't think that Chen Zhao was as scary as her father said. Just then, there was a knock on the door. Come in. The door isn't locked. A blonde woman with blue eyes walked in. She carried a pile of documents in front of Zhang Tianyi. What's the matter, overseer? Zhang Tianyi asked. The woman in front of him was the former president of the European Supernatural Organization, Overside Lily. But now, she was Zhang Tianyi's in-name disciple and secretary. Master, these are the 12 paranormal incidents that happened in Istanbul between 4 p.m. and 8 p.m. today. There was at least one casualty in every paranormal incident, and every victim's skull was smashed in with a single blow. The culprit is very powerful. Based on the analysis of a few pieces of information, the culprit should be a speed enhancer. Zhang Nan could not help but frown when she heard Overside Riley's words, because the first person she thought of was Chun Zhao. As expected, Zhang Tianyi's expression was calm after hearing Overside Lily's words. Yes, I understand. Record these files. Master, don't we need to send someone to investigate? Overside Lily asked, confused. Zhang Tianyi was one of the main people in charge of the Battle of Holy Glory. He was also in charge of security. But so many malicious paranormal incidents had happened today. Even if Zhang Tianyi was not furious, he should at least send someone to find the culprit. But Zhang Tianyi's reaction was too abnormal. The people who died deserve to die, Zhang Tianyi said calmly. Plus, I'm the one who sent people. If they find me in the end, it'll be awkward. Overside Lily did not expect Zhang Tianyi to be the mastermind behind all this. She also did not expect Zhang Tianyi to say it out loud, as if no one else was around. Overside Lily was the president of the European branch of the Supernatural Organization. She had done some things in the dark before. She could understand Zhang Tianyi's actions. People who looked righteous on the surface might have some dirty tricks up their sleeves. But Zhang Tianyi did not plan to hide it from Overside Lily at all. Zhang Tianyi and Chun Zhao were the same kind of people. They both had their own bottom lines. Of course, their bottom lines were different. Their actions were also different. Zhang Tianyi did not care if his methods were dirty or not. He only cared about right and wrong. He had sent people to assassinate those people. It was not righteous, but he had a clear conscience. So he spoke honestly. Even if the person before him was not his trusted aide or his daughter, he could still answer honestly. Because he had a clear conscience, he was fearless. Then, do we need to do something to suppress this? Overside Lily asked. We don't need to do something superfluous. Zhang Tianyi glanced at the corpses. Stroking his goatee, he said. But that guy is really efficient. Is it him? Zhang Nan asked. Yes, it's him. Zhang Tianyi nodded. Zhang Nan picked up the information Overside Lily had given her and glanced at it. In this list of the deceased, most of them were famous spiritualists. None of them were kind. In fact, they were extremely evil. However, so many villains were wiped out in just a few hours. Was that guy really that powerful? Master, there's one more thing. You better inform your people. What is it? There's an aristocratic club in Istanbul. Many spiritualists are gathered there. It's likely that the series of assassinations triggered some people's nerves. Many people? Yes, very many. Chapter 2365. The Celestial Master sent a message, Wang Hai said. He wants us to identify everyone in the venue. Is that necessary? Luo De looked depressed. The spell Rhoda was most proficient in was resonance theory. This spell was specially used to identify people within a certain range. For example, when two people talked, their conversation would reveal their identity. Telepathy would collect this information and analyze the other party's identity. The more the target talked, the more people they talked to, and the easier it was to expose their identity. There were so many people in the venue, and they kept talking to each other. Therefore, it wasn't difficult to collect the identity information of most people. Some people directly called out the other party's name or identity when they talked, and it was easy to get the personal information of such people. There were also some people who didn't talk at all, and it was basically impossible to get the other party's identity. Fortunately, the venue was quite lively, and there were only a few people who came and went alone. Do you have enough magic power? Do you want me to transfer some to you? No need, I have enough. Luo De shook his head and said, There are just a few people whose identities are unknown. Who's unknown? Wang Hai asked. Luo De spun the magic brush in his hand and quickly drew faces on the paper. I know this too. I know this person. Wang Hai recognized most of these people who weren't identified by Luo Da's spell. Wang Hai and Luo Da usually teamed up to carry out missions. Luo Da relied on telepathy, while Wang Hai didn't have any special skills. If he had to say something, it would be social skills. In the spirit world, most spiritualists weren't good at socializing, or they didn't like it. But Wang Hai was different. He could talk to anyone he met. No matter good or evil, there was nothing he couldn't talk to. Take this venue for example. He was the one who got the invitation. And there were more than 300 people in the venue. And Wang Hai knew at least 100 of them. And among the dozen people that Luo Da couldn't identify with his spell, Wang Hai knew 5 of them. Okay, send this name list to the Celestial Master. The two quickly passed the name list to Zhang Tianyi. Not long after, Zhang Tianyi sent another name list. Wang Hai, the Heavenly Master wants us to send a message to these people. He wants them to leave this place immediately. Then, we'll have to leave as well. What happened? I don't know. Maybe it's dangerous here. There are so many of us here. What danger could there be? Could it be that someone dares to cause trouble here? Wang Hai did not believe it. There aren't many good people here. Look at the people on this list. They're all honest children. I guess something is really going to happen here. Let's not dawdle. Let's finish the good deed and leave quickly. I know this person. I'll go and talk to him. You go and inform the others on the list. Luo Da was helpless. He knew that Wang Hai could chat with anyone. Even when he was on a mission, he would take the time to make a few new friends, or catch up with old ones. Wang Hai arrived in front of 2 old acquaintances. Hi Judith, Actai, long time no see. Wang Hai walked up to a couple. King, it's you. Long time no see. Acti stepped forward and gave Wang Hai a warm hug. Judith, won't you hug me? Judith rolled her eyes. Are you here to participate in the Battle of Holy Glory? No, I'm here to work. What about you? We're here to participate in the Battle of Holy Glory, but we've been eliminated, Actai said regretfully. This year's Battle of Holy Glory is really difficult. What about you? How's your work going? Judith and Acti seemed to know who Wang Hai was. I almost forgot about business. You'd better leave here quickly. Something might happen here. Something happened? What could happen? Hee. Don't tell me that the lightning hunter really dares to come here. What lightning hunter? Wang Hai asked in confusion. He was in the intelligence field, but he had never heard of a lightning hunter. You still don't know? Since this afternoon, there have been many cases of spiritualists being attacked and dying tragically. The attacker is good at using lightning, has an extremely strong physique, and is extremely fast. That's why he's called the lightning hunter. The organizer of this gathering gathered us here to discuss how to deal with the lightning hunter together. Wang Hai frowned. Although he got the invitation, he really didn't know what the theme of this gathering was. Whatever, let's not waste time. I've received orders from the higher-ups to notify some people to leave. You're also on the list, Wang Hai said. Are you serious? Yes, I'm not joking, Wang Hai said. Rhoda has already gone to notify the others. Acti and Judith looked at each other and nodded silently. The 3 were about to leave when someone appeared on the podium. Everyone, thank you for coming. I believe many of you know me. Of course, if you don't, I'd be happy to reintroduce myself. I'm Immanterico, the leader of the Dark Red Edge. Immanterico said in a loud voice. Is he the leader of the Dark Red Edge? Do you know him? Wang Hai asked. I don't know him. But this guy isn't an ordinary spiritualist. The Dark Red Edge isn't a sect that strives to improve itself either. Instead, it's an organization that specializes in stealing other people's pets, or hunting and selling rare magical creatures. The most famous thing about this guy is that he sold 2 young dragons, Akidi said. I wouldn't have come if I knew he was the one who held the gathering, Judith said. However, his strength is quite outstanding. It is said that he defeated 2 dragon whelps with his own strength, and enslaved them. At this moment, Immanterico said, I believe many of you already know that I've gathered you here, because someone is hunting down the spiritualists in Istanbul. So far, more than 20 people have died. This person is very powerful. I'm afraid that the Dark Red Edge, and I won't be able to defeat this lightning hunter, even if we work together. So I beg you to stay. If we work together, we will definitely be able to defeat, or even kill this lightning hunter. I heard that all the people that the lightning hunter killed were experts that could intimidate a region. Can we really defeat him? But we have the advantage in numbers. Even if one of us can't defeat him, we'll go with 2. If 2 can't defeat him, we'll go with 4. I don't believe that the lightning hunter can escape. 9 Heavens Divine Emperor. Chapter 2366. Inman Trico looked at the crowd who had been encouraged, and could not help but show a smug expression. Of course, his motive was not as honorable as what he said, because he found that most of the people who died today were spiritualists who wandered in the shadows. They were also commonly known as the unclean or the fallen. They all had one thing in common, which was that during the War of the Holy Glory, they had more or less committed some unknown crimes in Istanbul. Because they were all the same kind of people, they were quite familiar with each other. Sometimes, they would even help each other out a little. So Imman Terrico roughly knew what they had done. He himself was no exception. On the surface, the dark red edge was a righteous force. In fact, the dark red edge was no less sinful than the other fallen forces. Now that those people were dead, Imman Trico and his kind were very nervous. They were worried that misfortune would befall them soon. Of course, there were also many people who were worried that misfortune would befall them. Most of the people in this hall were not good people. They had more or less done things sneakily. Only a few people did not know what was going on, and really thought that this was a gathering to discuss how to catch the lightning hunter. Most of them were simple-minded, and did not notice the common characteristics of the dead people. They really thought that the so-called lightning hunter was a butcher, who killed without batting an eye. Of course, most of them were smart people. After all, fools could not be bad people. Wang Hai listened to Imman Trico's bewitching words from below. He was an intelligence officer, so he knew very well what kind of person Imman Trico was. Of course, he would not really believe Imman Trico's words. But many people believed that there was no need to be afraid of the lightning hunter, with so many people gathered here. Humans were social animals. The more people there were, the safer they felt. At least with Imman Trico's encouragement. Everyone seemed to think that a mere lightning hunter was not that scary. As long as the lightning hunter dared to show up here, they would each cast a spell, and turn the lightning hunter into a sieve. Nothing that guy says can be trusted. Let's get out of here, Judith said. It was obvious that Judith hated Imman Trico very much. Wang Hai even felt that Judith didn't just reject Imman Tarek. Judith seemed to hate Manin Tarek. Hey, isn't that Judith? Imman Terrico, who was standing on the podium, noticed Judith in the crowd. Let's go. Judith's face darkened as she turned around to leave. At this time, Imman Terrico stepped forward and blocked their way. Judith, we haven't seen each other for a long time. Why are you leaving as soon as we meet? Imman Trico gently lifted Judith's hair and sniffed it. What an intoxicating smell. Let go of me. Akidi shouted and slapped Imman Trico's hand away. Judith was his girlfriend, and the current one was here. Imman Tric, the ex, was actually flirting with his girlfriend, as if no one else was around. No man could tolerate this kind of thing. Imman Trico smiled frivolously and looked down at Aktai. Is this your current boyfriend? He looks so weak. Judith, it seems that after we broke up, your eyesight is getting worse. What did you say? You bastard. Aktai flew into a rage. If Judith hadn't stopped him, he would probably have had a full-on fight. Judith hugged Aktai tightly. Calm down, Aktai. They're all his people. Let's go. Wang Hai also grabbed Aktai's arm. If you want to take revenge, you can do it anytime. There's no hurry. Although Aktai was still furious, he managed to stay rational. In the end, he suppressed his anger and left. Looking at their backs, Imman Trico whispered to his men. Go to the garage and stop them. Yes, President. Let's get out of here quickly. Trico is not a good person. Judith knew Imman Trico very well. The three arrived at the garage, and hurriedly found their cars. Just then, a car stopped in the parking space next to them. The three couldn't help but stop because they saw that the person in the car was wearing a mask. The man in the mask also noticed the three people in the car next to them. The man in the mask picked up a list and looked at it. It was not the target on the list. The three were all dumbfounded. Who is this guy? A spiritualist? Why did he look more like a bank robber? The man in the mask was of course Chen Zhao. Because of his previous experience, Chen Zhao changed his face scarf and wore a hood instead. This way, he wouldn't have to pull it off during the fight. Chen Zhao didn't care about the three's gazes. He got out of the car as if there was no one else around. Just then, more than 20 people rushed out from the various entrances. Is this a trap? Chen Zhao muttered to himself. However, when he saw the people surrounding him, he still took out the list and looked at it again. Perfect, one of them is a target. Chen Zhao looked at a bearded man. You're Lion King Gulei? Chen Zhao asked. Gulei looked at Chen Zhao. Who are you? Are you their accomplice? Them? Chen Zhao looked back at Wang Hai, Aktai and Judith. I don't know them. I don't care if you know them or not. Since you're here, don't think about leaving. Are you going to surrender? Or do I have to tie you up myself? Tie me up? Why me? The president told me to do it. Chen Zhao picked up the list and looked at it again. President? Your president is the head of poachers called Inman, right? Perfect, I need him for something too. You know the president. No, but I need him for something, Chen Zhao said. Who do you think you are? You can see whoever you want. Plus, your background is unknown. If you want to see the president, tie yourself up first. Sure. One of you come over and help me tie myself up. Chen Zhao stretched out his wrists, showing his sincerity. For a moment, Gulei was confused too. Did this guy really need the president for something? Aktai, Judith, and Wang Hai were also confused. They weren't surprised by Gulei's intentions. They were just confused by Chen Zhao. No matter how much they racked their brains, they couldn't figure out what this guy was here for. Tie himself up to prove his innocence. Chapter 2367. Wang Hai, Akti, and Judith tried to resist, but their strength could only be described as barely passable. Gulei didn't even move. In fact, only 4 or 5 of the dozen people he'd brought did. In no time at all, the 3 of them were tied up tightly. Chen Zhao's hands were already tied up. He looked back at the 3. Puffed. So pitiful. Hearing Chen Zhao's gloating tone, the 3 of them were furious. You're not much better than us. I did it willingly. The 3 rolled their eyes. Just then, one of Gulei's subordinates walked over and tried to pull off Chen Zhao's mask. Don't, Chen Zhao said, dodging the man's hand. This is my style. The man hesitated and looked back at Gulei. Send them to the president. He'll decide. Then the 3 of them. The president asked for them. Send them to him too, Gulei said. Gulei said, search their bodies. No matter what it is, don't let them carry it on them. Then the 4 were sent to a spacious and luxurious office. Chen Zhao sat down on the sofa. The 3 looked at Chen Zhao. This guy was really friendly. He didn't treat them like outsiders at all. Aren't you going to sit? This sofa is pretty comfortable. It's made of leopard skin, Judith said. It's that guy's favorite collection. Really? No wonder it's so comfortable. Inman isn't a good person. Me neither, Chen Zhao replied. As for Inman subordinates, they didn't care. They also didn't care about Chen Zhao's unbridled attitude. In their eyes, the more Chen Zhao didn't care, the worse he'd die later. Just then, Inman and Gulei pushed open the door and entered. When they saw Chen Zhao sitting on the sofa with his legs crossed, they couldn't help but be stunned. Inman squinted at Chen Zhao. You're Inman? You know the answer. Inman snorted. You better tell me why you're here. Otherwise, I won't let this go. I don't care what your attitude is. I'm here to kill anyway. Chen Zhao shrugged. You and your subordinate, Gulei, are both on my list. Inman opened his eyes abruptly, but he wasn't too surprised. Just now, Gulei had already found the name list on his body. When Inman saw the name on the list, and the name that was crossed off, he was sure that the masked man was the lightning hunter they were looking for. So they played along and brought Chen Zhao to this room. At this moment, a large number of spiritualists were stationed outside the room. As soon as Inman gave the order, the spiritualists would swarm in at once. List? Are you talking about this list? Inman sneered as he took out the list. Chen Zhao glanced at Inman Looks like you already know who I am, and why I'm here. After all, No one would brazenly hide the name list on their body. I didn't expect to capture the lightning hunter so easily. Lightning hunter? Are you talking about me? Chen Zhao glanced at Inventuriko and Goulet. It's not that I'm looking down on you, but if I wasn't willing to be bound, do you really think you can capture me? But you still fell into my hands, Inventuriko said proudly. Fell into your hands? Aren't you overestimating yourself, or overestimating the rope that binds my hands? Ha! You can try. Maybe you can break the rope, even if you break your hands. Magic rope. Chen Zhao tested it, and found that the rope was indeed very tough. However, the so-called toughness seemed to only apply to ordinary people. It's indeed tough, but it's not enough. Bang. Chen Zhao exerted a bit of strength, and the ropes binding his hands snapped. Inventuriko and Goulet immediately took a step back. Wang Hai, Acti, and Judith stared at Chen Zhao in shock. This guy was the lightning hunter? How could he be a lightning hunter? Was there a mistake? Humph. I've indeed underestimated you. Inventuriko sneered. But you don't think that everything will be fine after breaking free from the magic rope, do you? What other trump cards do you have? Or are those guys lying in ambush outside your trump cards? Not enough. Not enough. I still have a long way to go. Exposing an assassin in front of so many people already means that you failed. Do you think you still have a chance to turn the tables? Chen Zhao raised his head and stared at Inventuriko in shock. You seem to be mistaken. I accepted the mission to kill the people on the list, but I'm not an assassin. At least, I'm not a professional. Chen Zhao stood up from the sofa. As for accepting this mission, it's partly because I owe you a favor, but mostly because I'm curious. I want to see how an assassin kills. Curiosity kills. I'll say the same thing back to you. Chen Zhao raised his right arm and pointed 2 fingers at Inventuriko. Instantly, 1,000,000 volts of electricity shot out from his fingers and shot toward Inventuriko. But Inventuriko took out a magic staff. The 1,000,000-volt electricity was blocked by the staff. The 1,000,000 volts of electricity also disappeared in an instant. Inventuriko held his staff unscathed. This staff is called Thunder's Fury. It can control the power of lightning in the world. Inventuriko looked at Chen Zhao proudly. Why do you think I'm standing before you so confidently? It's because I know that you're a speed enhancer and proficient in lightning. You're strong, but as long as I have this staff, your advantage will be gone. In Inventuriko's opinion, since Chen Zhao's abilities were countered by the staff, he didn't have to be afraid of Chen Zhao anymore. Looking at the people who had died earlier, most of them were stronger than Inventuriko. However, Inventuriko realized that most of them had been killed by lightning directly in the head. As long as he had something or someone that could counter lightning, he would be able to win. Is that so? Does this staff have a limit? Chen Zhao asked, intrigued. Ha! Inventuriko suddenly waved the staff and pointed at Chen Zhao. A bolt of lightning shot toward Chen Zhao. Boom! The lightning exploded on Chen Zhao's body, but Chen Zhao stood where he was, not moving at all. Inventuriko couldn't help but frown. Not bad, but you want to use my attack against me? Aren't you being a little too whimsical? 9 Heavens Divine Emperor. Chapter 2368. Inventuriko was surprised by Chen Zhao's strength, but he still believed that he was on the winning side. Everything Chen Zhao did was just a futile struggle. But he also felt that he was too close to Chen Zhao. It was too dangerous. Chen Zhao was fighting a spiritualist who specialized in speed. It was a taboo to get too close. Inventuriko took a step back, the corners of his mouth curling upwards. Suddenly, 4 glass walls fell around Chen Zhao, trapping him inside. Aren't you being too naive? Chen Zhao looked at Inventuriko in surprise. Do you really think this thing can trap me? As soon as Chen Zhao finished speaking, a large amount of gas suddenly sprayed out from the 4 corners of the glass wall. Oh no! It's mana paralysis, cough cough. Wang Hai, Acti, and Judith felt very uncomfortable. They were also trapped in the glass wall. This kind of poisonous gas was very dangerous for spiritualists. If they accidentally breathed in this gas, their bodies would be seriously malfunctioning once they circulated their mana. In order to deal with the lightning hunter in front of him, Inventuriko had put in a lot of effort and made ample preparations. Instantly, The entire glass wall was filled with smoke. Inmantrico looked very pleased. It seemed that victory was already in his grasp. But the next moment, the poisonous gas in the glass wall disappeared at an extremely fast speed. Chen Zhao's vision quickly returned to the glass wall. Inmantrico stared at the glass in astonishment. Wang Hai, Acti, and Judith were either lying down or half kneeling. The three of them were obviously affected by the mana paralysis gas. But the lightning hunter was still standing in the same spot. Chen Zhao took a deep breath, and then burped. Tastes good. A smile appeared on Chen Zhao's face. Outside the glass wall, Chen Zhao's expression changed instantly. Game over. Chen Zhao suddenly raised his right arm, and smashed it heavily on the glass wall. Boom! The ground shook violently, but the glass wall was undamaged. Oh, such a hard glass wall. Which company made it? Inmantrico couldn't help but laugh. This is magic glass that contains barrier magic, and is specially made. Before Inmantrico could finish, Chen Zhao raised his arm and punched again. Bang! The earth shook and the mountains shook. The ceiling and the ground connected to the glass dome cracked. Inmantrico stared at Chen Zhao in shock. Panicking, he said to Goulet, "Call everyone in." When the spiritualists outside rushed in, Chen Zhao had already thrown his third punch. The glass shield shattered instantly, and Inmantrico stepped back in fear. While smoking, Goulet suddenly felt a terrifying pressure surging towards him. Goulet wanted to retreat, but a hand reached out from the smoke and grabbed Goulet's wrist. Ah! With a blood-curdling scream, Goulet's arm was broken. At the same time, Chen Zhao snatched the name list from his hands. Chen Zhao couldn't help but frown. The list was damaged and blurred by Goulet's blood sacrifice. He's the lightning hunter. Go kill him. Goulet yelled hysterically. Everyone looked at Chen Zhao. Just then, someone attacked Chen Zhao out of nowhere. Chen Zhao was looking at the list at the moment. He casually attacked the person who had ambushed him. A 1,000,000-volt electric current penetrated the spiritualist's head. Old generation Ritter. Chen Zhao read out a name, and found his target in the crowd. Then he read, Wild Sect Raoul Tony, Old God Shoal. Chen Zhao read out the names one by one. And this Mary, which faction is she from? Just then, Wang Hai said from the ground, Sir, I can help you identify them, but you have to guarantee our safety. Wang Hai had no choice. They were in the center of the conflict. The three of them had been poisoned again. They couldn't even stand up, let alone protect themselves. Once a full-scale conflict broke out, they would be the first to bear the brunt. Thus he had to find protection. Of course, no problem. Chen Zhao agreed readily and handed the list to Wang Hai. Wang Hai looked at the names on the list. Mary Duope from the Nile Goddess sect. That's the woman. Dunazan from the Thai Deathly Silence sect. That's the one. This is too much. Inmantrico yelled. Let's go together. If this continued, these people would definitely be divided. Those not on the list would definitely not be willing to attack. Instantly, a dozen spiritualists attacked Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao also threw a dozen punches. Thud, thud, thud. The dozen spiritualists were instantly knocked down. Chen Zhao didn't kill them, but the spiritualists were all strong and weak, so their injuries varied. There are 12 in total, Wang Hai said. 9 are here. Okay, those whose names are called stay. The rest can scram. Everyone at the scene looked at Chen Zhao with fear. However, more people were dissatisfied with his arrogant and disdainful attitude. There's so many of us. Why should we be afraid of him? Are we just going to watch him kill our companions? One had to admit that Inmantrico wasn't strong, but he was extremely good at bewitching people. Those who'd been wavering and retreating firmed their resolve again. There were so many of them, and Chen Zhao was just one person. What was there to be afraid of? Looks like most people aren't afraid of death. Chen Zhao's gaze swept across everyone present. Wang Hai, Acti, and Judith became even more nervous. After all, they weren't the people involved. They'd even wanted to leave. In the end, they were sucked into the vortex by accident. No matter what choice they made now, they wouldn't have a good ending. As for following Chen Zhao didn't seem to have any chance of winning. He might be very strong, but he was just one person. There were 300 to 400 spiritualists present. It was impossible for them to fail. Kid, you're the one who's going to die, an old man called out. He was also on the list, so he was especially proactive. I'll control him. You guys are in charge of pouring magic on him. A muscular man called out. Chen Zhao looked at the man. Judging from his build, he should be an enhancer. An enhancer to control him? Chen Zhao was curious. The burly man shouted. Unquenchable hatred. A wave of magic enveloped Chen Zhao. Instantly, Chen Zhao felt that the man before him was very annoying. Very, very annoying. He hated and disliked him for no reason. Chapter 2369. Kill him. Kill him. Even though Chen Zhao realized that there was a problem, he couldn't help it. However, he still couldn't help but attack the strong man. At the same time, the others took the chance to attack Chen Zhao. The burly man was very confident. He was an enhancer, and he was best at taking a beating. No one could beat him in 10 minutes. 10 minutes was enough for all the spiritualists in the surroundings to kill this scoundrel who was hiding in front of them. Just then, Chen Zhao revealed a fierce look. In an instant, he appeared in front of the muscular man. The muscular man's body immediately turned into a metal statue. Bang! The burly man felt a pain in his chest and looked down. Chen Zhao's fist had already penetrated his chest. The metal body couldn't block Chen Zhao's punch either. Boom, boom, boom. Just then countless spells landed on him. Chen Zhao was swallowed by countless spells. Suddenly, a figure flew out from the wave of magic. Everyone thought that Chen Zhao was trying to escape, but upon closer inspection, they realized that it was the burly man's corpse. At this moment, a figure moved as fast as lightning. In an instant, a spiritualist's neck was broken. After Chen Zhao charged into the crowd, he was like a wolf in a flock of sheep. The crowd instantly fell into chaos. Don't panic. Don't panic. Inman yelled. But his command had no effect. It was as messy as it should be. In just a few minutes, more than 20 spiritualists had died. The others were even more afraid of Chen Zhao, although they had the advantage in numbers. However, their advantage in numbers did not seem to have the desired effect. Run! Inman Teriko saw that he couldn't hold the situation any longer. Therefore, he planned to make the scene even more chaotic. Since he couldn't get everyone to work together, he would make everyone lose their will to fight. He didn't believe that Chen Zhao could stop everyone. Inman Teriko's words made the situation even more chaotic. Some people still wanted to continue fighting him, but more people fled in panic. At this moment, everyone suddenly realized that a black substance was spreading outside the window. The black substance was covering the outer walls of the venue. The crowd gasped in horror. They suddenly realized that there was no way out. The entire venue was completely covered by the black substance. Inman Trik's expression changed drastically again. He won't give us a way out, so we can only fight him. One had to admit that Inman Teriko knew how to make use of the situation. Seeing that their escape route was gone, their fighting spirit immediately rose again. Moreover, when people are in a desperate situation, they can always burst forth with even greater strength. Freeze! A spiritualist waved his arms, and dozens of light swords shot out in the air. The light swords pierced through Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao was shocked by the sword's power and penetrating power. His defense actually couldn't block this light sword. The next moment, Chen Zhao realized that the light swords weren't lethal at all. But when the light swords penetrated his body, they formed a wave of coldness that seeped into his body and spread. It actually showed signs of sealing his celestial power. Hurry up, attack him while he's locked down by me. However, this seal did not last long. Chen Zhao's immortal power suddenly activated, shattering dozens of light swords at the same time. The spiritualist spat out a mouthful of blood. It was too fast. His ultimate move could only trap this guy for a few seconds. In the past, he'd used this move almost every time. Just then, the ground suddenly split open, and a huge hand grabbed Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao pushed with his arms, and the hand disintegrated immediately. Wang Hai, Acti, and Judith were all dumbfounded. There were 300 to 400 spiritualists present, but they couldn't do anything to this guy. Spiritualists died under Chen Zhao's fists one after another. As long as Chen Zhao got close to them, there was almost no chance of survival. Calling it a battlefield was no longer enough to describe the tragedy in the hall. This was simply an azure field. No matter how vicious and arrogant they had been in the past, they were just lambs waiting to be slaughtered. Now they were just lambs waiting to be slaughtered. The spells landed on Chen Zhao, but they didn't cause any damage. In fact, most spells couldn't even get within 3 feet of Chen Zhao. This was an extremely hopeless situation. The spells they were so proud of had no effect at all. On the other hand, every attack from Chen Zhao could take away a person's life. No one understood where this guy had come from. He was a demon that had crawled out of hell. No, he was even scarier than a demon from hell. There were a few spiritualists with demonic spells at the scene. They had even used forbidden summoning to summon a terrifying demon. But Chen Zhao was teaching them how to tear a demon apart. Chen Zhao used extreme terror to dominate everyone. Inmentariko's heart grew heavier and heavier. Hundreds of people he'd gathered had died. But this person didn't tire. He was like a perpetual motion machine. He killed tirelessly. He suddenly realized how stupid he'd been. He'd received information about the people who'd died earlier, and thought that he'd taken them seriously enough. But he still had a sliver of hope. He thought that he could deal with them. He didn't think about running away or hiding. Now he finally came to his senses. But it was all too late. Chen Zhao wasn't a hunter at all. He was a butcher. He wasn't facing a group of prey, but a group of lambs. Galay was right in front of him. He'd torn it apart. It was also at this moment that he realized that when a person's power reached a certain level, all schemes would seem so stupid. Finally, no one attacked Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao walked up to Inmentariko. Inmentariko felt a chill down his spine. Even though Chen Zhao was wearing a mask, Inmentariko could feel that the man before him was smiling. There was also a mocking look in his eyes, as if all the killing was to prove his stupidity. Chen Zhao lifted his blood-dripping hand. Suddenly, Inmentariko's body shook, and he turned into a huge dragon. Chen Zhao arched an eyebrow. Mixed blood? No, this guy only had the appearance of a huge dragon. This was just a transformation spell. He didn't turn into a real dragon. Still, Inmentariko's dragon transformation gave everyone confidence and courage. They seemed to think that Inmentariko could counterattack. After all, no matter how strong the lightning hunter was, he couldn't be stronger than a dragon. One had to admit that Inmentariko's dragon transformation was indeed shocking. Although he wasn't a real dragon, the transformed Inmentariko had improved his abilities in all aspects. He had strength, speed, and even dragon breath. Spiritualists not only needed a large amount of mana, but they also needed to constantly strengthen their physique. However, there was a limit to the human body. Therefore, enhancer spiritualists were basically the kind of people who couldn't make it. Even if there were a few outstanding ones, their strength was actually quite limited. Currently, the enhancement type in the spirit world was in a situation where there were experts but no strong ones. But today, they had witnessed a terrifying enhancement type with their own eyes. If killing a dragon with one strike wasn't considered strong, then they didn't know what standard a strong person should use. Could flesh and blood really reach such a terrifying level? At any time, being able to defeat a dragon was something to be proud of. However, at this moment, everyone felt that this person seemed to have done something insignificant. He seemed to be used to it. Slaying a dragon seemed to be a very normal thing. Chen Zhao turned around and looked at Wang Hai. Wang Hai's heart skipped a beat. Even though they weren't enemies right now, being stared at by those eyes still made Wang Hai feel uneasy. How many more? Chen Zhao asked. Wang Hai shuddered and turned to look at the crowd. There were many people, but they were all squeezed into a group. Everyone shrank their heads, not daring to meet Wang Hai's gaze. They knew very well that if Wang Hai pointed out their names, there was no chance of survival. No more. Those on the list, and in this venue are all dead. Fine. Chen Zhao shrugged and glanced at the crowd. Everyone lowered their heads, afraid to make eye contact with Chen Zhao. You're lucky. I wanted to kill a few more people. Just then, the dark lava covering the outer walls of the venue gradually retreated. Under the bright moonlight, there was a trace of scarlet. But just then, everyone's gazes toward Chen Zhao changed. Could it be that his magic power has been used up? It's very possible. Maybe that strike just now was his last bit of power. His voice isn't as loud as before. The spiritualists whispered among themselves. Chen Zhao was somewhat confused. These people had been afraid of him just a moment ago. Why did this suddenly happen? Chen Zhao heard their whispers. Now, the spiritualists no longer looked at Chen Zhao with fear in their eyes. There was a trace of eagerness in their eyes. There was also a trace of red. Chen Zhao furrowed his brows. Some mysterious power was driving them. It suppressed their fear to the lowest level and magnified their emotions at the same time. Finally, someone stood up and pointed at Chen Zhao, shouting, "You stop!" Chen Zhao stopped and looked at the spiritualists. He realized that not all of the 200 or so spiritualists had been bewitched. However, there seemed to be only a few who were rational. What? Do you still want to fight? Do you want to leave just like that? You killed so many people. Shouldn't you give us an explanation? Explanation? To you? To who? Chen Zhao walked toward the person. I think you're at the end of your rope. Most of us are still in our best condition. We're not afraid of you anymore. Now, Chen Zhao was completely sure that these people were being manipulated by someone. He didn't know if they'd lost their fear or their ability to think normally. If they were normal people, they definitely wouldn't cause trouble for Chen Zhao now. They had no reason to continue fighting. However, they provoked Chen Zhao at the most inappropriate time. Chapter 2371. A few spiritualists didn't understand why these people, who'd been so afraid of Chen Zhao just a moment ago, were suddenly so brave. These people's reactions were too abnormal. It was like they'd taken the wrong medicine. But they were very excited. The fear from before was like an act. It wasn't just a few people either. Most people reacted this way. When everyone looked at Chen Zhao, their eyes flashed with the urge to try. The few spiritualists who hadn't been bewitched couldn't help but wonder if this killer was really exhausted. However, when they saw the scene of blood flowing like a river and the gigantic dragon corpse, they immediately sobered up. They couldn't offend that guy. They really couldn't. What a joke. He wasn't really exhausted right now. Even if they were really exhausted, could a flock of sheep do anything to a lion? The few spiritualists who were still rational and clear-headed immediately realized there was something unusual about these abnormal people. This wasn't a normal method. It could make hundreds of spiritualists lose their minds at the same time. They were also fearlessly provoking and attacking a terrifying guy. This method was simply unimaginable. Bewitchment spells were more commonly known as enhanced hypnosis. Mind spells were also mental spells. Mental spells weren't omnipotent either, because people have a sense of self-safety. For example, controlling an ordinary person and making them move and speak normally was the most basic operation. It would be difficult to make the person lie or deceive someone close to him. It would be very difficult to make the person take out his bank card and password. The human subconscious would reject such requests. Simply put, the more ridiculous the request, the more difficult it would be. It was almost impossible to make someone commit suicide. But now there were more than 200 spiritualists here. They were doing the same thing as committing suicide. This caused a few spiritualists to feel a chill down their spines. Soon they attacked Chen Zhao. Their blood-red eyes showed that they were behaving abnormally at this moment. However, Chen Zhao was never someone who would reason with others, especially when the other party took the initiative to attack him. Die! Chen Zhao used his clones and 36 clones appeared. Each clone had the same power as the original body. Wang Hai, Judith and Arkti widened their eyes. Was this guy really an enhanced spiritualist? This was clearly a cloning spell. However, they soon discovered how terrifying these clones were. His strength was on par with his main body. How long would it take for the battle of over 200 spiritualists to settle down? Chen Zhao gave them the answer. Just 1 minute. The atmosphere in the hall became even more intense. Within a minute, more than 200 spiritualists were killed. There were only a few conscious spiritualists. Their hands and feet were cold, and they stood where they were. The spiritualist, who had been brimming with fighting spirit a moment ago, had now become a cold corpse. Only now did they realize that no matter how intense the battle had been, Chen Zhao hadn't used his true power. The so-called exhaustion was just a conjecture on their side. The 36 clones retracted, but the smell of blood on Chen Zhao's body was even thicker. When Chen Zhao's gaze landed on the remaining people, They were already trembling in fear. They couldn't stop at all. Of course, they wouldn't be like those crazy spiritualists who naively thought that they had a chance of winning. He wouldn't be so naive as to think that Chen Zhao was exhausted. The person in front of him couldn't be judged by common sense. Don't you feel anything special? Like you want to kill me? Try to turn a bicycle into a motorcycle? Everyone's faces darkened. Try what? What's there to try with you? None of the people who were still alive had a problem with their brains. They were all smart people. It was still a question whether the person before them had even used 30% of his strength. Just then, Chen Zhao took off his mask. Everyone covered their eyes at the same time and lowered their heads. No one dared to look at Chen Zhao's face. They were afraid of death. Even Wang Hai, Judith and Arkti did the same. Chen Zhao had been wearing a mask the entire time. He clearly didn't want to expose his identity. When he took off his mask in front of everyone, it was probably the time to kill everyone present. The wet and bloody mask fell to the ground. But Chen Zhao's gaze wasn't on the survivors. Instead, he looked at an inconspicuous corner. Come out. There's no point in hiding anymore. Everyone's hearts skipped a beat. They could vaguely guess who Chen Zhao was talking to. Chen Zhao's words were directed at whoever had sent those spiritualists to their deaths. The person hiding in the shadows and the person who'd massacred the entire place were both unbelievably powerful. Now that the two were about to meet, who was stronger? They couldn't help but be curious. Some were even looking forward to it. However, when the person hiding in the shadows walked out, everyone's jaws dropped, their faces filled with astonishment. It wasn't anyone else but Zhang Tianyi. Chen Zhao looked at Zhang Tianyi and rubbed his chin. Let me guess what you're going to say next. Your mission is over, but you know too much. Don't worry. I'll take good care of your daughter. Zhang Tianyi's face twitched. You're too dramatic. Why did you do that? Chen Zhao stopped joking and suddenly became serious. None of the dead are good people. Is there any difference between killing one bad person and 100 bad people for you? What about them? Don't tell me they're immune to your spells. They're good people, Zhang Tianyi said seriously. They're just stupid. I can't bear for them to die in your hands. Wang Hai was from Dragon Tiger Mountain's Celestial Masters sect. Chapter 2373. Everyone was surprised by this loss. But it was reasonable. This battle on the arena was extremely brutal. Both Gaia and her opponent had their own strengths. Gaia lost, but her opponent wasn't much better than her. It was almost certain that she would be eliminated in the next round. Gaia was carried off the stage. Of course, Chen Zhao had checked Gaia. Her injuries were serious, but they weren't life-threatening. An elite had to be more careful in the following matches. Perhaps he had learned from Gaia's defeat. This time, an elite didn't hold back. He used all his big moves. The opponent was stunned by Angelite's attack. An elite didn't give his opponent any time to react. Of the 3 arena battles, an elite won the most easily. Of course, there were many factors that contributed to his win. It wasn't something that could be summed up with just one word: strength. From the magic characteristics of both sides to the psychological state of each other, everything was the key to the final outcome. Even if Gaia lost and an elite and Heliais won, it didn't mean that there was a difference in their strength. After this round of arena battles, there were 256 participants left. The next day, the third round began. Helith was eliminated in this round. Chen Zhao knew the person who eliminated Heliais. It was Matthew from the church. Of course, he lost in such a fair competition. Even Chen Zhao didn't plan on teaching Matthew a lesson. An elite advanced with difficulty. In this battle, an elite used the same old trick again. But his opponent was prepared. An elite won the battle purely with his strength. There were 128 participants left. And the victor received a new piece of news. The next match wasn't a one-on-one. It was a 4-person mixed battle. Out of the 4 of them, only one could advance. An elite was well prepared, but he didn't have any advantage in this battle. So he lost without any surprise. But it was already a good result to get this ranking. Although they belonged to the 128, they were now collectively known as the Holy Glory's Top 100. An elite also represented the supernatural organization. So his achievement was one of the few honors of the organization. An elite had even created a historical record. He was the first person in North America to receive the honor of the Holy Glory Top 100. The last one was held in the real world. This time, it was no longer a one-on-one tournament. Instead, 32 people would be thrown into a forest with complex terrain. Let these 32 people fight each other. There were no other rules other than not being allowed to kill. Until the last 10 people were decided. These 10 people were the 10 people of Holy Glory. In the spirit world, this was practically the highest honor. Chen Zhao brought the people from the supernatural organization to watch the final battle. What do you think? How do you feel? They are clearly stronger than anyone in our team. Chapter 2374. Portia was waiting at the airport. She watched as Chen Zhao's group walked out of the arrival gate with bags of all sizes. She'd received Chen Zhao's notice to arrive at 1 in the afternoon. But it was already 5 in the afternoon. Clearly, she'd been tricked by Chen Zhao again. Actually, Portia had already expected that Chen Zhao would trick her. So she'd delayed it for an hour. In the end, she'd underestimated Chen Zhao's shamelessness. After waiting for more than an hour, Chen Zhao was still nowhere to be seen. She'd wanted to just leave, but considering that she still had a large bill to pay, she endured it in the end. When she saw Chen Zhao's luggage, Portia cursed inwardly, evil capitalist. Smiling, Portia walked up. Boss. She opened her arms, wanting to help Chen Zhao carry Zhilin. No need. You're in charge of the cart. Portia's face darkened. This asterisk shoal has the nerve to make a weak girl like me carry so much luggage? Luckily, Gaia and the others helped Portia. Gaia, what happened to you? You didn't go overseas to fight, did you? Portia saw that Gaia's left arm was in a cast, and there was a band-aid on her brow. That's right, Gaia admitted readily. Really? What level of competition was it? Was it on TV? Can you find the recording online? I'm afraid not. It was an underground boxing match, Gaia said, chuckling. Ah, what a pity. Portia knew that Chen Zhao's subordinates were all good fighters, especially Gaia. Apparently Gaia had a gym. It was also the most famous gym in America. Last time, Chen Zhao had talked to Gaia and heard that a venture capital firm wanted to invest in Gaia's gym. But Gaia didn't seem to agree, so the matter was left unsettled. After moving everything into the RV, Chen Zhao said goodbye to the supernatural organization. His family was obviously happy that he'd returned. Of course, they were even happier about the gifts Chen Zhao had brought back. Fei Lai already knew that Zhilin was fine, but after seeing the lively Zhilin with her own eyes, she was still very excited. When he got home, he felt much more relaxed. But there were more things waiting for him. Forget about the brewery. That day, Denver came to find Chen Zhao with a pile of documents. In short, it was a mess. Most of them were troublesome. Even things like donations needed Chen Zhao's signature. The next day, he went to the supernatural organization's headquarters. The members of the association all knew the result of the Battle of Holy Glory. Originally, many members thought that with their powerful strength, they would definitely be able to obtain a very good ranking. He had even obtained the title of Holy Glory, and even obtained the title of first place in the Holy Glory. However, the result disappointed most of them. Even an elite, who had the best results, only managed to get into the top 100 of Holy Glory. After all, most members did not know what Holy Glory represented. He also didn't know what kind of enemies Gaia and the others would face in this battle of Holy Glory. What's more, they didn't know was that most of the individuals and forces participating in the Holy Glory battle had the goal of entering the top 100. Apart from a few top-notch religions and factions, there were almost no small organizations that thought of seizing the title of Holy Glory. In the supernatural organization, only West could see it clearly. In the end, the supernatural organization's foundation was too weak. Right now it was a top-notch organization in North America, but on a global scale, the supernatural organization was nothing, and they were participating in the Battle of Holy Glory, a top-notch event. It was like the Olympic Games. No one could expect a small country to be in the top 10 of the medal table in their first Olympic Games. That was simply impossible. Of course, the members' disappointment also became the driving force that motivated them. The 10 people who had participated in the Battle of Holy Glory didn't say anything. When Chen Zhao came to the headquarters, he brought gifts for everyone. He even brought special gifts for the evil spirit groups. Just then, a car stopped in front of the headquarters. Aduz had informed Chen Zhao that he was here for him. When Chen Zhao arrived, he saw that it was Felwood Cisco. Hey Felwood. Long time no see. Hello Mr. Chen. Hi Felwood. How did you know that I'm back in Los Angeles? Chen Zhao remembered that he hadn't told Felwood. Mr. Denver told me about it. Felwood Cisco had once undertaken the construction of a brewery, so he was still connected to Denver. He'd also found out from Denver that Chen Zhao was back in Los Angeles. Today, he'd gone to Mirror Lake Manor to visit Chen Zhao. But after hearing that Chen Zhao was out, he came here. The new headquarters of the supernatural organization was also built by Felwood's company. So Felwood was no stranger to this place. Mr. Chen, I wanted to tell you a few days ago, but I heard that you were on vacation, so I didn't disturb you. Your private airport has already started construction. It's less than 1 kilometer from here, but it's still under construction. If you're interested, you can go there and take a look. Oh, okay. Chen Zhao nodded. At the same time, he thought of something else. Oh, I told you last time that I have a big project to do. You said that you need to hire more construction workers. How's it going? Felwood Cisco had actually come to find Chen Zhao today, because he wanted to probe Chen Zhao's thoughts on this matter. He was indeed expanding the construction team, but the number of people was limited. He'd only hired less than 150 construction workers. It was mainly because they hadn't signed the contract yet. Moreover, this project was only a verbal promise from Chen Zhao. He hadn't even seen the shadow of it yet. Therefore, he didn't dare to hire too many people, lest the company collapse. Chapter 2375. Chen Zhao hadn't paid attention to Sardinia's starry night shadow, which was the current location of Nanchi Island. However, he still knew the rough location. After all, when Chen Zhao had landed on Nanchi Island, he'd found Sardinia's heart and injected dark magma into it. Therefore, he could sense his rough location. Furthermore, it was approaching the sea area that he had purchased, where Little Nine and Amon were currently lurking. Amon's body was a bit too big now, so he couldn't enter Mirror Lake from the river. Little Nine's body was also catching up. Although he wasn't as big as Amon, he wasn't that far off. Now they were basically moving around Moon Beach and the personal sea area Chen Zhao had bought. Ever since Chen Zhao had bought that sea area, the American Bureau of Land Management had been asking about him every few days. They were wondering if Chen Zhao would buy more empty sea areas. Nanchi Island was only 100 kilometers away from Chen Zhao's sea area. Based on Sardinia's speed, it would probably take them about a month to reach the private sea area. When Chen Zhao saw the Bureau of Land Management's call, he immediately hung up. Felwood's caution was understandable. After all, it was impossible for Felwood to hire a large number of construction workers with just his 2 lips. However, under the circumstances where he didn't even have the shadow of a contract, he first recruited more than 100 workers. This was a sign of trust in Chen Zhao. After Felwood and Felwood left, Chen Zhao continued to stay at the headquarters. They'd been gone for almost 20 days. There were many things piled up in the association. Most of them could be solved by the remaining members. However, there were still some things that the remaining members couldn't solve. President Totobelster secretly sent you a letter a while ago. He wants you to meet him when you come back. Huh. How's he doing in the psionic team? Has his identity been exposed? No, West said. It seems like the people in the psionic team treat him as a hidden expert. It was funny. A liar was actually treated as an expert by a supernatural organization. But it was understandable. After all, the psionic team's foundation was too weak. They were much weaker than the supernatural organization. Not to mention the existence of a super expert like Chen Zhao. Even the normal members were several levels weaker than the supernatural organization. Right now, the mana users team didn't rely on inheritances or fame. It was purely a lure of money. Therefore, the level and strength of the spiritualists that could be recruited varied. There were 1 or 2 experts, but the vast majority of them were trash trying to fish in troubled waters. Of course, they wouldn't be considered trash. In fact, there were still some who had a certain level of strength and fame in North America. However, if placed in the entire spirit world, he would basically be at the bottom of the barrel. In North America, there was basically no control over magic. Aside from Los Angeles and the surrounding areas, there were the Supernatural Organization and the Psionic Team. In the other regions, there were only a small number of mediocre spiritualists. A small number of cities were occupied by powerful evil forces. Some supernatural organizations that broke the law loved to do evil in North America, because no one here could control them, and no one dared to. Even if they were exposed, they had ways to escape. Compared to other countries and regions, which strictly controlled executives and high risks, it was different. There was basically no need to worry about these issues in North America. Chen Zhao and West had never taken the Psionic Team seriously, apart from the difference in strength. More importantly, it was the difference in outlook. Even after participating in the Battle of Holy Glory, even before participating in the Battle of Holy Glory, their outlook was more than one level lower. To the Supernatural Organization, the Psionic Team was like a country bumpkin. The reason why they hadn't killed the Psionic Team was because they needed an opponent. They weren't there to motivate the Supernatural Organization. They were there to block the lightning. If the Psionic Team was destroyed, a new team would definitely appear to fight against the Supernatural Organization. Therefore, Chen Zhao and West decided to keep the Psionic Team. The Psionic Team might be growing with abundant funds. The number of people in the Psionic Team continued to expand. In fact, sending Gaia, an elite, and Helios could directly destroy the Psionic Team. With such strength, how could Chen Zhao and West take them seriously? Underestimating the enemy? That didn't exist. In the spirit world, there were also many ants that could bite an elephant to death. But how many people did that have to be? Excluding other factors, the greater the difference in power between spiritualists, the greater the difference in combat power. Where did Bayers ask me to meet? South Coast, West said. Can't he just call me if he needs anything? The supporter behind the Psionic Team is the security department. It's too easy to check their communication. Does Todabelster dare to call you? If he does, he'll be dead on the streets tomorrow. One had to admit that this liar was very cautious. If he used a paper letter, the security department and the Psionic Team wouldn't be able to find out no matter how powerful they were. The American Intelligence Department was very powerful, but they weren't omnipotent. As long as one was careful, even a normal person could avoid being noticed. In the past month, Todabelster hadn't improved in other areas. However, his anti-detection abilities were improving day by day. It couldn't be helped. He was in the tiger's den now. Fortunately, everyone in the Psionic Team treated him as an otherworldly master. At that time, Vestana brought 30 people with her, but when she came back, only 10 were left. Almost all of them were injured, but because of the urgency from above, they are now preparing for the expedition to Bermuda. Above? Anti-Terrorism Security Department? No, it's from the higher-ups. It's said that a fleet from the military went missing near Bermuda. Of course, the military has to take responsibility for it, and the Psionic Team is the main party responsible. The higher-ups have ordered that the Bermuda incident must be resolved within a month. An entire fleet went missing? Yes, the fleet cruising in the Atlantic Ocean. Why did that fleet go to Bermuda for no reason? Do you want to die? Chen Zhao frowned. That's because 2 more cruise ships have disappeared in the nearby waters recently, and their nautical coordinates were in the vicinity before they disappeared. The number of missing people is more than 1,000, and the disappearance of these 2 cruise ships has been publicized on the internet. Under pressure, the government could only send a fleet to Bermuda to investigate, but this time, even the entire fleet disappeared. Chen Zhao frowned. He had a rough idea of what was occupying the waters of Bermuda. If the Psionic Team went, they would probably die too. How many people does Vestana plan to bring this time? All of them, Toddy Belster said. President, do you know what's going on there? A little, not much, Chen Zhao said. But with the Psionic Team's strength, if they go there, it won't be an expedition. It'll be sending sheep to the tiger's mouth. Then won't I be in danger? Toddy Belster panicked. At the end of the day, he was just a liar. Not to mention going to such a dangerous place. Even a small evil spirit could kill him. Hearing Chen Zhao talk about the dangers of Bermuda, he was even more unsure. The entire psionic team would be sending sheep to the tiger's mouth. How could a defenseless liar like him be any better? Can you think of a way to reject it? I can't. I've already rejected a few missions before, Toddy Belster said, troubled. Do you have a specific time? No, but I think I'll need half a month to prepare. Okay, hold on for half a month, Chen Zhao said. I'll think of a way in that time. Anyway, I won't let you die. Even if I can't think of a way in the end, you can just tell me. I'll come and pick you up. No matter what, Toddy Belster had no obligation to die for Chen Zhao. The most Chen Zhao could do to restrain him was to kill him. Chen Zhao didn't plan on killing him after he was dead. Since he was willing to risk his life for him, Chen Zhao had to at least arrange a backup plan for him. Take this check. Toddy Belster took a deep breath when she saw the number on the check. I'll do what I promised you. I'll also think of a way to ensure your safety, Chen Zhao said. After this is over, you can take the money and go wherever you want. Toddy Belster was a normal person. Chen Zhao couldn't let him join the supernatural organization. One aduze was enough for the supernatural organization. They didn't need another. Toddy wasn't free yet. After all, he was a spy now. If he left for too long, people would definitely remember him. So after a few hurried words, they separated temporarily. Chen Zhao, on the other hand, was thinking about how to keep Toddy Belster's secret. Telling the psionic team was definitely the last choice. Unless it was absolutely necessary, Chen Zhao didn't want Toddy to tell the psionic team either. Chapter 2377. Not long after Chen Zhao got home, Clive and Ampa came to visit. Chen Zhao was surprised by their arrival. Weren't they taken away by the Holy Knights? Why were they back? Mr. Chen, hello. Clive looked at Chen Zhao at the door. Hello, Mr. Clive, Ms. Ampa. They'd interacted before, but they weren't even friends. So they were still very distant when they talked. Even the way they addressed each other sounded distant. When did you guys come back? 2 days ago. 2 days ago? It seemed like they'd come back earlier than him. Did you have any special encounters in Istanbul? Chen Zhao asked, pretending not to know. Nothing special, Clive said casually. I just met a few new friends. Chen Zhao thought about it. It made sense. The Holy Knights weren't some evil organization. It was also impossible for him to do anything outrageous to them. Clive and Ampa only came to greet Chen Zhao. They also apologized to Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao invited them into the manor, but they didn't want to stay. They left after apologizing. After sending Clive and Ampa away, Alex came again. It was also a small matter, but it required Chen Zhao's signature. Ever since Dashin beer became popular, all sorts of trouble came. In short, it was a messy matter. For example, someone claimed that Dashin beer stole someone's recipe, or someone said that he had a problem drinking beer. It was more or less a case of petty theft. Alex had already taken care of these trivial matters. Those that should go to court would go to court, and those that should settle out of court would settle out of court. Chen Zhao basically didn't need to worry. Chen Zhao only needed to sign it. Of course, with Alex and her legal team. Even if it was settled out of court, the other party wouldn't get much money. Chen Zhao didn't think that he could extort money from them. For those who wanted to extort money from him, Chen Zhao would sue them directly. Chen Zhao felt that he couldn't let such a large group of lawyers stay idle. Even though Alex often told him that it wouldn't cost much to settle out of court. Nevertheless, Chen Zhao's reason was reasonable. I'm paying you guys to help me fight cases. She didn't mind helping Chen Zhao fight cases. However, there were always a few scoundrels who wanted to extort a sum of money every month. Therefore, it was basically endless. But Chen Zhao did not care. I helped you send 6 more people to prison this month, Alex said. Really? How many years was he sentenced to? The longest one is only a year. The others range from 3 to 9 months. Alex said. This kind of thing doesn't last long, and the compensation is less than $100,000, but the cost of the lawsuit is more than $2 million. No matter how one looked at it, this was a loss. But Chen Zhao did not care. This amount of money was within his acceptable range. Aunt Alex. Little Jerlin ran over, followed by little Larissa. Last time, Zhang Tianyi had asked for his help, so he hired people from the Sacred Flame sect to cripple Yanghua. That way, Yanghua wouldn't be able to do anything. In the end, not only were the people from the Sacred Flame sect completely wiped out, they were even captured alive by the psionic team. No matter what, he couldn't get involved this time. You're really not going to help? It's not like you've never been to American territory before. Can't you just treat it as a friendly visit? Do you really need me to do it? It's not as simple as you say. I can't do anything, but you have so many disciples. You don't need Yanghua. My disciples are all precious. I can't lose one. You can't do this, you can't do that. Only your disciples are precious? Anyway, I'm just here to inform you. You can do whatever you want. I don't care. The school in Mountain Town could only be considered average in terms of teachers and scale. It was even a little inferior to the primary schools in China. The United States also had resources in the area of education funding. Large and developed regions would definitely have better resources. On the other hand, the resources in small and remote areas were much worse. For example, the school in Mountain Town was funded by the local government. However, the funding for education was also quite limited, although the children of the family had received education in the past. However, the education they received was also uneven. The American education system was divided into preschool education, primary education, secondary education, and higher education. Basically, it was equivalent to the 4 levels of education in China: kindergarten, primary school, secondary school, and university. However, the length of education differed from region to region. There were 8 or 4 systems, 6 or 6 systems, 4 or 4 or 5 or 3 or 4 systems. Mountain Town and the surrounding areas of LA were all 8 and 4. That was 8 years in primary school and 4 years in middle school. Apart from little Jerlin and little Larissa, the other children in Chen Zhao's family had more or less received some education. Their age distribution was also different. Mackenzie showed Chen Zhao and the children around the school. The field seems a bit old. It was built when the school was first established, Mackenzie said. Because it was a public school, the funding wasn't very abundant. That's the classroom building. Next to it is the library. Mackenzie introduced them one by one. Chen Zhao nodded. Didira, show them around the school. Didira nodded understandingly. She was precocious, and due to her family's accident, she was more like an adult. After the children left, Chen Zhao took out a check and handed it to Mackenzie. When Mackenzie saw the number, she almost had a heart attack. The figures on it were more than enough to rebuild a new school if they were sponsored by the higher-ups. Mr. Chen, I want my children to have a wonderful semester. I don't care about their grades, but I don't want them to be wronged. Mr. Mackenzie, do you understand? Yes, I understand. I'll try my best to ensure their studies and school experience. Thank you for your help, Mr. Mackenzie. Smiling, Chen Zhao patted Mackenzie's shoulder. If they're satisfied with the school, I'm willing to sponsor a sum of money every year. But if any of them aren't treated fairly or are wronged, I can't guarantee that I won't choose another school. The only advantage of Mountain Elementary is that it's close to home. As a principal, Mackenzie wasn't that interested in Chen Zhao and his family's children. But after receiving the sponsorship, Mackenzie changed his attitude. Even in a higher education institution, this amount of sponsorship would be considered a huge donation. Also, before the Christmas break, I hope that the school can be renovated. Of course, we were limited by funding before. With your help, I don't think it's a problem anymore. Mr. Chen, are you interested in sponsoring our school team? School team? Are you talking about me or the brewery? Chen Zhao was surprised. His main business was beer. America's education department didn't allow adult product manufacturers to sponsor primary and middle schools. Even if they wanted to sponsor, they could only do it in their own name. Alcohol products were even stricter. They weren't allowed to appear in any place in primary and middle schools. After all, Chen Zhao was a teacher, so he had some understanding of this. The check he'd just given should be enough to support the school team's competition. Mr. Chen, do you only have one brewery? I remember that you have a restaurant, right? Chen Zhao had never considered advertising Marina's restaurant. After all, Marina's restaurant was a high-end restaurant. Its service group was special, so it wasn't suitable to appear on TV. But if it was a school team, it wouldn't lower its profile. Instead, people would think that it was charity. What's the main competition for Mountain Elementary School? Chapter 2379. Marina's restaurant wasn't a secret. However, most people didn't know that Chen Zhao had other businesses. Mackenzie was a smart person. He probably asked about Chen Zhao's businesses. Maybe he couldn't find out about other businesses, but it wasn't hard to find out about Marina's restaurant. Mackenzie's request was simple. He wanted to sponsor the school team. His price wasn't high either. It was less than $20,000 a year. Dashan Elementary School had a basketball and cricket team. Chen Zhao had already donated $1 million. It was indeed a huge sum in one person's hands. However, for an old school like Dashan Elementary School, it was a bit hard to make ends meet. After all, everything needed to be repaired. Some places even needed to be expanded or built. Chen Zhao also wanted the school to be renovated. Therefore, the funds left for activities or education became tight. That was why Mackenzie asked Chen Zhao for money in the name of sponsorship. He knew about Marina's restaurant, even though he hadn't been there before. As the most famous and high-end restaurant in LA, it was easy to imagine how much it cost to go in and out. The people who went there were basically celebrities. They were either rich businessmen or celebrities. There weren't many restaurants like this in LA. Restaurants like this usually didn't advertise on TV. Advertising would actually lower the restaurant's grade. Usually, they would do soft advertisements in weekly magazines or newspapers, or in the entertainment news. Give some money to the entertainment reporters, and let them mention Marina's restaurant while reporting on celebrities. Chen Zhao had asked Stephen and James for help a few times. He would first invite them to eat at the restaurant, then spend money to find entertainment reporters to report. With Stephen and James's current fame and status, other restaurants wouldn't be able to invite them. Regardless of whether they spent money or not, it was impossible for them to advertise a restaurant just for a meal. However, they were happy to help Chen Zhao so that he would owe them a favor. As for Stephen, his cooperation with Chen Zhao was quite pleasant. Because of Chen Zhao's help, he had even reached the peak of his career. James, on the other hand, knew how powerful Chen Zhao was. Chen Zhao wasn't the only one who was close to Stephen and Rasfa. He was also very powerful in the business world. At least this time, due to the funding problem, the film company asked him if there were any ways to get funding for his new movie. James decided to give it a try and called Chen Zhao. In the end, Chen Zhao helped him get 60% of the budget for his new movie. It was very difficult to run a high-end restaurant, at least in the early stages. Advertising would lower the standard of the company, but no one would know if they didn't advertise. Just like what Chen Zhao had done before, he could buy a ready-made one. If Nafa Twain had not been in a hurry to use the money, Chen Zhao might not be able to buy the shares of Marina's restaurant at such a cheap price. The monthly revenue and net profit of Marina's restaurant were definitely worth the huge sum. The monthly turnover of Malina's restaurant could even exceed 20 million. After deducting taxes, the net profit was still more than 50%. This was definitely a very high-quality property. Of course, this was also because Chen Zhao had provided some special ingredients. Delicious and expensive at the same time. Ordinary people couldn't afford it. But in Los Angeles, there was no lack of rich people. Moreover, Malina's restaurant had many repeat customers. Among them, there were countless celebrities. Marina Restaurant doesn't allow reporters to enter. However, if the celebrity was willing, they might be the ones who found the reporter. The restaurant wouldn't stop them. But because of Marina's restaurant's special position, it was hard to advertise. Spending tens of thousands of dollars to sponsor a school team was quite suitable for Marina's restaurant. Of course, the rate of return was basically of little value. After all, even if he put Marina's restaurant's name on the school team's clothes, no one would pay attention to it. unless they could participate in at least an intercontinental competition. After visiting the school, Chen Zhao left with the children. When he got home at noon, there was no one at home. Fei Lai had gone to work, but the underlings had already prepared lunch. After the family finished eating, they heard the sound of a car horn outside the door. "Master, Mr. Stephen is visiting," the system reminded. The underlings that had been scattered around the house immediately sped up. In a few minutes, they finished what they had to do and returned to their lair. After the gate was opened automatically, Stephen drove the car into the parking lot like he was familiar with the place. Chen Zhao had been standing in the parking lot to welcome Stephen. But as soon as Stephen got out of the car, he started cursing at Chen Zhao. "You asterisk shoal. Where have you been for the past half a month? Every time I call you, you don't answer. Either you're outside the service area." Chen Zhao shrugged and turned to look at the other middle-aged man that Stephen had brought. Chen Zhao knew that Stephen wouldn't bring strangers to his house. Even if he wanted to introduce a friend, it wouldn't be in his house. "Hello, I'm Lit's father. I'm Drow Grove." Chen Zhao was stunned. Was this Lit Grove's dad? No wonder Stephen had brought him here. "Hello, Mr. Drow. I really like your movie." Drow Grove chuckled. He didn't believe Chen Zhao's polite words. Chen Zhao had been confused when he saw him just now. He clearly didn't recognize him. Of course, he wasn't here to argue with Chen Zhao this time. It was mainly because when he'd invested in a movie last time, his son had to borrow money from Chen Zhao to start filming because of the funding problem. He heard from his son that Stephen had hired him as the lead in Stephen's new movie because of Chen Zhao's help. Therefore, it was reasonable for him to come over and thank Chen Zhao. From his son, he got a rough understanding of Chen Zhao's personal information. For example, he was very rich, very powerful, and couldn't be messed with. But Drow Grove didn't have any idea about this. But when he saw Mirror Lake Manor, he knew how rich Chen Zhao was. As an A-list celebrity, he had a lot of money. But the manor before him was probably as rich as his family. He was curious how a university professor like Chen Zhao could be so rich and have so many connections in Hollywood. At first, he'd only thought that Chen Zhao had some money. But after the audition for Stephen's new movie, he was hired directly. Only then did he start to believe his son's words. Chapter 2380. In America, the evaluation of rich people was divided into several levels. First was the car. America was a country with a lot of cars, so most of them were cheap. But luxury cars were still very expensive. Therefore, if this person was driving a luxury car, then this person was definitely a rich person. Second was the house. Houses were judged by location, size, and area. For example, in Beverly Hills, the most direct impression was that there were a lot of patrolling police. This was how the government treated the rich differently. Then there was the yacht. Drow Grove saw the yacht docked by the shore. This yacht was almost equivalent to his entire fortune. Drow Grove made up his mind to build a good relationship with Chen Zhao. Of course, Chen Zhao didn't have such thoughts. He treated Chen Zhao more like a normal guest. Although he was Lit Grove's father, Chen Zhao didn't have any relationship with Lit Grove. There wasn't even any exchange of benefits. Their social classes were also different. So Chen Zhao really didn't have anything in common with Lit Grove. Of course, Chen Zhao still had the most basic etiquette for guests. When he served Stephen and Drow Grove, he still took out his precious red wine. After all, Drow Grove had been in Hollywood for decades. He was experienced. Of course, he could feel that Chen Zhao didn't interact with him. However, this was also human nature. After all, it was their first time meeting. Chen Zhao's relationship with Drow Grove was all because of his son. Even Stephen had brought him here because of his son. Drow Grove also got this role because of his son. However, Drow Grove didn't expect to talk about life and philosophy with Chen Zhao on the first day. At least they'd gotten to know each other and talked. They'd find a chance to meet next time, and their relationship would come out. Before leaving, Chen Zhao sent Stephen and Drow Grove to the door with a large piece of meat in his hand. At the same time, he looked at Fantas in the driver's seat. "Fantas, this is for your Evan. Of course, people can eat it too." "Thank you," Fantas said. "Can you put it in the trunk for me?" She knew that Chen Zhao would give her good stuff. Every week, Chen Zhao would send 20 kilograms of raw food to Stephen. Famtis was in charge of transporting the food back and forth between the two ends. Occasionally, Stephen would give her some too. And Evan was very fond of eating these kinds of meat. Chun, I've eaten most of the food you sent last time, Stephen said. Marina's restaurant has unlimited supplies, Chen Zhao said bluntly. If you want to eat, go to my restaurant. Marina's restaurant is so expensive. I need at least $10,000 to fill my stomach. I can't afford to go there every day. Zhao made a mental note. So Marina restaurant was his property. Mr. Stephen, what animal did that leg belong to? Where can I find the goods? I don't know what animal it is, but I know it's delicious. As for the original source, only Chen knows. That's his secret. If you want to know, you'll have to ask him yourself and see if he'll tell you. However, Marina Restaurant sells a limited amount of original ingredients every month. If you're interested, you can check it out, but it won't be cheap. Zhao didn't want to steal Chen Zhao's business. He was just curious. What price? Marina Restaurant sells 100 kilograms of ingredients every month. Each kilogram is maintained at more than $10,000. Occasionally, they provide more expensive ingredients. Zhao Grove sucked in a breath of cold air. Didn't this restaurant earn more than him, a big star? Not to mention Zhao Grove's idea. Many rich and famous people had wanted to get their hands on Marina's restaurant. But Chen Zhao had rejected them all. Most of Marina Restaurant's shares were in Chen Zhao's hands now. Only a small portion was mortgaged to the bank. Of course, rather than saying it was mortgaged, it was more like an exchange of benefits and the maintenance of relationships. There were so many investors in the world. They invested everywhere to find good projects. But good projects weren't so easy to find. Take some internet companies that everyone was familiar with. It seemed like the investors who invested in these giant internet companies made a lot of money. But in fact, before they successfully invested in these internet companies, they had made the same investment dozens or even hundreds of times. It was basically like 1 or 2 out of dozens or hundreds of failed investments. Only then could they recoup their capital. Why would the owners let you invest in a confirmed good project? Because you had money. There were many rich people in the world. Thus, Zhao only thought about it. He wouldn't do anything. Zhao was more concerned about Chen Zhao's connections and connections. It seemed like he had to ask his son. Let's see if Leet has any more information. Not long after Stephen left, Chen Zhao received a special call. Hello, handsome. What's up? Chen Zhao looked at the screen. The handsome guy was lying lazily on a cloud. I heard from Belial that you fought a titan snake before, he asked. Yes, but it's a modified titan snake. Find me a pure-blooded titan snake, dead or alive, but the heart must be intact, the handsome guy said. Depends on luck, Chen Zhao said. I'm not sure if I can find one again. Just then, a cryptic magic array appeared on Chen Zhao's screen. Find an empty space and set up this magic array. Summon a weapon I made for capturing titan snakes. Empty space. How big? Not too big, the handsome guy said. About 10 meters is enough. Chen Zhao started drawing the magic array on the grass in the backyard. You drew it wrong. It's a bit too much. Chen Zhao was a bit annoyed. A bit more or less is fine. If you insist on drawing it like this, you might summon a Lord-level demon. Of course, it'll also drain your magic power. This magic array can summon demons? Didn't you say it's a weapon? I changed it at the last minute. It's from another magic array. Also, you drew it wrong again. There's a tick missing. You'll be sent to an unknown space. Magic arrays are so troublesome. It's indeed difficult for untalented humans. Can you not look down on me before ordering me to do things? Chen Zhao pointed at the ground. Another ravine appeared. There's another line. It'll cost you 10% more magic power. 9 Heavens Divine Emperor. Chapter 2381. Chen Zhao really didn't have the talent to draw magic arrays. Fine, Chen Zhao admitted it. It wasn't that he couldn't draw the magic array that the handsome young man had provided. If he just copied it, he could finish it in 3 to 5 days. However, Chen Zhao clearly didn't plan on spending 3 to 5 days to draw a magic array. If he had the time, he might as well kill a titan snake. It would be more straightforward. So Chen Zhao could only find help. Help me gather the kids in the living room, Chen Zhao said to the butler. As long as they were in the manor, Chen Zhao didn't need to shout. The butler would receive his orders. When Chen Zhao entered the living room, the kids were coming down the stairs. Uncle, did you call us? Have any of you studied magic arrays before? Or who knows how to draw one? Uncle Mimi, Binz yelled excitedly, raising his right hand. Chen Zhao looked at Binance, who was 7 years old. He didn't trust this young face at all. Binz, aren't you a water mage? Uncle, I really can draw magic arrays. My mom used to be a Turing mage. I'm a water mage, but I've been taught basic Turing magic, Binz said. Chen Zhao looked at Didi, who nodded. Auntie Muller is indeed a Turing mage, but I didn't know that Binz can draw magic arrays. Chen Zhao took out his phone. Look at this magic array. Can you draw it? What a huge magic array. Binz looked at the array on the screen and said, Uncle, is this a summoning array? Or something? A weapon from hell, Chen Zhao said casually. Isn't it too complicated? It's not complicated at all. Someone must have modified it. It's not an original one, Binz said. At the same time, he glanced at Chen Zhao. It looks like someone modified it to make it easier for people who don't know how to carve it. But at the same time, it also increased the spellcaster's requirement. Uncle, according to the mana requirement of this magic circle, it will need a lot of mana. Chen Zhao could clearly see the disdain in Bin's eyes. Chen Zhao's face twitched. Stop nagging. Draw it for me. Uncle, it's okay if you want me to draw a magic array, but you have to promise me something. What? I don't want to go to school. Chen Zhao rolled his eyes and dialed a number. Hey, right, it's Chen Zhao. Help me contact a completely sealed school. I want to send a disobedient asterisk shoal there. No. Binance hurriedly hugged Chen Zhao. Uncle, I was wrong. Grabbing Binance's chin, Chen Zhao smirked. Change your conditions. Take me with you the next time you go on a mission, said Binance. Other than Sidora and Mara, who were 2 younger girls, everyone else's eyes lit up. They also wanted to go on missions with Chen Zhao. It was definitely very, very thrilling. If it suits me, I can bring you along. I don't care. I'll take it as you've agreed. Chen Zhao rolled his eyes. He didn't agree, but he didn't nod immediately either. Binance grabbed the phone and ran into the backyard. Earlier, he had seen Chen Zhao working in the backyard for half a day, but when he saw Chen Zhao's magic array, he looked back at Chen Zhao. His eyes were filled with disdain. Yes, disdain. Then he stretched out his leg and erased Chen Zhao's half an hour of hard work. But he had to admit that Chen Zhao was indeed bad at magic arrays. More accurately, he was very bad. Binance's completion rate in 5 minutes was higher than Chen Zhao's half an hour. Holding the phone, Chen Zhao said, Binance, don't you need to compare the magic array? You might make a mistake. Don't treat others like you. The handsome guy hadn't hung up yet. He was still mocking Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao grinned. If I knew this, I wouldn't have taken this hard job. Can't you blame me? I've already simplified the original magic array hundreds of times, but you still can't draw it. I just don't have the talent. That's all. Get rid of that. Seeing that he couldn't help Binance, Chen Zhao sat down where he was. As soon as he sat down, he felt something wet on his butt. Touching it, Chen Zhao's face darkened. The backyard of the manor was open and connected to the grassland. Occasionally, cows and sheep would come here. Most of the time, they would be chased away by the family pets. But sometimes, the cows and sheep would leave some gifts before they left. Chen Zhao wanted to cry. What was under his butt was a fresh cow fun. He called the underlings to clean up the place. Chen Zhao returned to the bathroom to take a shower before coming out. In 10 minutes, Binance had finished half of it. This kid's talent is good. I have some magic books like this. I'll give them to you later. Oh, I have a question. Go ahead. I have a friend, to be precise, he's my subordinate. He doesn't have any magic power. He's just an ordinary person. But he relied on his charisma, deception to sneak into the enemy's headquarters, and was treated as a VIP. However, he doesn't have any ability to protect himself. Recently, due to some matters, the enemy needs to test the strength of their subordinates. Now he only has 2 choices. Either he directly shows his cards, or he gets killed by the enemy. Is there any way to give him the ability to protect himself? It's simple. Make a summoning magic array for him. Of course, no matter how convenient it is, it's not as convenient as carving it on his skin. He doesn't have any magic. How can he use the summoning magic array? And what about the target? Sacrificial summoning doesn't need magic. You mean the kind that uses living people as sacrifices? Of course not. Sacrifice is more like hiring. As long as you can pay something of equal value, you don't have to use a living person. Also, how much do you know a living person is worth? There's no lack of human souls in hell. Unless you sacrifice hundreds or thousands of people at once, you won't be able to summon a decent demon. What do I have that's valuable? Not dollars, right? It's convenient if it's dollars, but how much does it cost? Is 100,000 enough? The handsome guy stared at Chen Zhao on the screen, speechless. Of course, we'll use your wealth in hell. Didn't you obtain a large number of spoils of war when you and your friends captured a great lord's territory? In addition, you also have a large number of demonic crystals and angelic crystals. These can also be used as sacrifices. How much? That depends on what level of demon you want. A great lord is impossible. Your wealth is huge, but it's not enough for a great lord to break the rules and come to the human world. According to my estimation, a normal demonic crystal can summon about 10 low-level demons. If it's an angelic crystal of the same level, it should be able to summon 15 low-level demons. Angelic crystals are more valuable than demonic crystals. Yes, for demons in hell. After all, angelic crystals aren't from hell, but there are many mines for demonic crystals in hell. 9 Heavens Divine King, that you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.